Well, it didn't come up until the moment my son was laid on my chest. And during my pregnancy, I didn't know what I was having, so I never really thought about it much. But it did cross my mind, and I just thought, I'm not going to do it. You know, I never really looked into it. I didn't know anything good or bad about circumcision or intact. When they laid my son on my chest, that was the first time I was really faced with the reality of things. And the doctor said, "You're circumcising, right?" And I was kind of put off a little by that because it was the first initial moments of, you know, bonding and establishing breastfeeding. And so that perturbed me a little bit, but I kind of brushed it off. I shook my head no and, you know, continued on with meeting my son for the first time. And it didn't come up again. I was like, okay, good, that's over. But the next morning, around 7:30, I was woken up by a different doctor. And now looking back, he was fast talking and trying to really make light, I feel, of what was going on, because it felt very out of control. And the decision was pretty much made for my son, the way he came in there and got my signature.
Do you remember anything specifically he might have said?
I won't feel it. It's quick. It's better for him. You know, and then a bunch of him trying to make different jokes, you know, with people in the room and trying to keep things real light and quick, I guess. And he got my signature.
What happened next?
Well, my son came back and they wheeled him in, and I went to pick him up and he let out this like squealing sound. He'd never made any sound like that. You know, he was very quiet and happy and calm. And I went to pick him up and it was just this squeal sound. And I looked at my son's father and I was like, that traumatized him. I knew at that moment, my heart sunk, and you know, I wanted to just kick myself for not, you know, standing up for him and not following my instinct. And I really, at that moment, that was the beginning of a regret that I will never, ever live down. He was pale and his eyes were puffy and scrunched up and bloodshot. And he had a hernia from screaming. And he just was fidgety and he didn't want to look at me. You know, I held him and he just, you know, well, he slept for hours after that. He didn't want to wake up. He didn't really want to nurse. You know, and I had to keep trying with him just to get him to nurse again. So, yeah, it was pretty brutal. But even then, I didn't really know about circumcision. That motherly instinct told me that it was horrible. And I know he suffered. I know he did. And then I learned about 4 months later what circumcision was about. I came across something about Chase, and it prompted me to look into it. And, you know, a case about a little boy, you know, and his father wanting to cut him, and it made me want to, you know, dig deep into that story and read it. And I found a few links, and I ended up watching a video of the actual procedure, and I have never been the same since. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable that a doctor could see that right in front of their face and actually participate in that and not be affected by it. You know? So I really hated myself for a long time after that, and I would hold my son and nurse him to sleep and apologize to him over and over and over and just cry and cry. You know, and nobody understands. You know, your friends don't understand. Well, it's not that big of a deal. You know, even your partner may not even understand why it's affecting you so much. So it was a hard time in my life. It's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're on the street.
Yeah, because I have to do something about this. I can't sit back and just not use our story to spread awareness. I, for one, would have loved someone to come up and give me some information. I don't understand when people don't want the information. I don't understand it. I would give anything to go back and, I mean anything. I would give my arms, my legs to go back and make a different decision. No decision.
What are your thoughts about that doctor?
I have to drive past his office very often, and I want to go in and give him a piece of my mind, you know? I want to say, how dare you not give me any information? How dare you come in and fast talk me? I said no to the doctor that delivered my baby. What did you guys do? Say she said no, go ask her again? What did you... I mean, I want to know, you know, why you guys were so concerned with my son and his penis. Why were you so dead set on asking me about circumcision, but not giving me any information on it before that moment? So, really, the only thing I could do at the time, someone suggested that I go to the hospital and make a complaint. And so I got my ducks in a row and I printed out all the information I could in a binder, and I called the hospital and said I wanted to make a complaint. And so they said, okay, well, you know, what happened? And I said, I don't think I can talk about this over the phone. I'd like to meet face to face if that's okay. And she said, yeah, is it okay if the chief nursing officer comes? And I said, oh yes, I'd like her to hear me out as well. And that was a nice long meeting, and you know, I got across a few points that I really wanted to get across, and they learned some things that they didn't even know. I'm really nervous.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you want to use this opportunity to speak directly to the doctor that did this to your son? Do you want to name that person?
I'm not sure if I should. Should I?
You can.
I'm not sure.
If you want to, and you have regret about doing that afterwards, all you have to do is tell me and I won't miss it. But I sometimes think one of the ways that we can do this is to make it public and name the names and you could talk directly to the doctor right here in a way that he would have to listen because it would be public, whether you named him or not.
Well, his name was Joel Kramer, and he was the lead OB of Kramer and Associates. And the doctor that delivered my son was Lev Belder. And we loved him. We wanted him to be our delivering doctor. And I really can't believe I couldn't trust them. Because we really liked them. You know?
When you've studied a lot about this issue now, and you know a lot about it.
Yeah.
How do you view what went on in that hospital room?
Oh, it was like the biggest blind side of my life. I think it was coercion. I think it was very unethical, the lack of information. Complete lack of information. They didn't speak about it once during the prenatal period. Not once. We didn't even have a conversation about, you know, why it was coercion, lying, manipulation. I believe it was manipulation.
Do you understand why?
In my heart, I don't understand why, but I can try to piece the things together. I think it was about money. And if I'm really honest, I think they were practicing their religion on my son.
Could I offer something?
Yes.
I think that all circumcision is psychologically driven, and there's a very strong impetus on the part of one who is circumcised to enforce that upon others.
Yeah.
And I think that might be even a greater motivation than money or religion.
Yeah.
Because it seems to cross, when there's no money involved, when there's no religion involved, there's still strong.
Yeah, I believe that. There's many reasons, and I think they all run into each other and, you know, spill over into people who never would have even circumcised. You know, the instinct was there to not need this, you know, to protect your baby. And what is it that overrides the maternal instinct? What can do that? I mean, it's just baffling. I feel betrayed by the doctors. I feel betrayed by the nurses. I feel betrayed by my country. You know, the women I know, the mothers I know in my life before me that never mentioned anything about it to me. You know, whether they circumcised or not. You know, that this was an issue that I would have to come face to face with. I wasn't ready. I should have been ready. And I wish I could go back with what I know now and just embarrass the doctor that asked me. I would embarrass him. He wouldn't have came back in that room with what I know now. So that's why this information needs to be out there. You know, mothers deserve the truth. You know, and it's a shame that mothers have to happen upon the truth by accident, or people holding signs, or stumbling upon something on social media. I mean, it shouldn't be that way. It's like the Twilight Zone.
So here we are at the AAP conference. And you've seen the arrogance and the...
Yeah, there they are right now. Some of them walking behind you.
Yeah.
You see they're smirking and laughing and looking at us like, well, why are we out here? You know? I've even heard a couple women say, why are you out here? Pediatricians don't do circumcisions. How is it that you're a pediatrician and you don't know that pediatricians do perform circumcisions? How is it that I know more about, you know, those things in your own field? Why do I know that and you don't? It's because in America there's this hush thing that we really shouldn't talk about it, and if we do, it should be about how great it is and how we should, and it's absurd to protest against it. Even the man that says I did not consent gets laughed at. Her body, her choice, but when someone says, you know, his body, his choice, oh no, it's the parent's choice. Well, it shouldn't, because look what happened to my son, because it was my choice.
Was it your choice?
It wasn't my choice, but in their eyes, it was my choice. It was my choice. They never should have given me that pen and that pad, that consent. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my son. And that's probably that gut instinct that I had, was that it wasn't necessary and it wasn't my body. So and I hope he forgives me one day. I really do. Because I don't know, like, I can't make it right. I can't make it right. You know, what do you say? You know, I have these words planned out, what I'm gonna say to my son, and it still doesn't sit right with me. This shit is so unfair. It's so unfair. It's just, it's mind-blowing how we don't see in America that men have the right to their own bodies. Like, I'm ashamed to be an American. I really am. You know, and this isn't the way I pictured my life. You know, having a small child again and being a more gentle mother than I was with my children when I was younger, and making the biggest mistake I could make. I mean, I've made many mistakes.
What would you say to the doctor who did this to your son?
If I came face to face with the man who circumcised my son, it would be hard to restrain myself physically, but I would want to scream in his face, "You lying piece of shit. You sneaky, sick psychopath. Cutting babies. It's disgusting. And you have to lie to parents so that you can do it." That's what I would say. Well,